Hey dumplings, it's Dave Decide. Today we woke up to very scary news about Taehyung's safety and location being allegedly sold, and then also the story of Taehyung's legal copyright issue over Purple You having an update and being re-talked about. So, hater or not, make sure you subscribe with the notification bell on, grab your dumpling, tea spilling mug merch, and your limited edition dumpling Christmas sweater. Proceeds go to charity, and let's get into it. If you are aware of the Purple You situation, then you know you're one of the cool people, but if you don't know, let me catch you up and you can join the cool club. Taehyung has a very special phrase he uses, which is Purple You. The members and the fandom have pretty much monopolized the color purple. Every time someone from the fandom or a BTS member sees the color purple, they tend to think this color represents them. They had mentioned that during a Run BTS episode, one of the new ones, where they were doing flying yoga and thought that the color of the purple sling was because of BTS entering and it was designed with them in mind. Likely and very possible, but RM mentioned that ARMY and BTS have had a bad habit of assuming everything that is purple is for them. But when you reach a point where the entirety of Vegas decides to honor you by turning purple, you can have this assumption that the color is for you, at least at this moment in time. I believe Prince had a hold on purple during his peak. RIP. By the way, if you want to watch this specific Run BTS episode I mentioned with me, we have a great time of fangirling and having fun over on Patreon. I will leave a link in that in the description if you want to join. But anywho, purple was supposed to represent that color that BTS is known for, and then also this greater form of an I love you, a word that means admiration and stuff. The Korean word for it is borahae, and this all popularized with the finger hearts. This was all something not even BTS popularized, but mainly just Taehyung. HYBE attempted to allegedly file for a copyright on borahae, which would mean that anyone that attempts to use the term in a commercial way would need to give some money to HYBE, or may not even be allowed to use the term without HYBE's permission. This didn't sit right with the fandom, and there was a bit of a protest when it made the news. The people of the copyright facility seem to also be fans of Taehyung, had a hearing and rejected the copyright because they believe the copyright should only go to Taehyung and not to the company. This seems like Taehyung had friends in high places. This also means if Taehyung were to ever leave the company, he would have the phrase to take with him wherever he goes. And I don't think Taehyung had ever formally filed to copyright it since then. I could be wrong. I assumed he would get it if he did. But this all comes back into the news even though it was something that happened a while ago, because shortly after this incident happened, there was a huge protest against HYBE. ARMYs were mad that HYBE was even attempting to copyright something that wasn't theirs, and attempting to copyright a phrase that they may not have ownership of. This would depend on HYBE's contract with BTS, if that includes ownership of any phrases that the members say. These things are, of course, more of a gray area than a black and white area. The general reaction on Twitter and by ARMYs was that HYBE was a bad company for attempting to do this, but I tend to disagree a little bit. At the end of the day, a company's job is to make money. That is the sole job of a company. It's not to treat people kindly. It's not to do any of that stuff. Ethically, should they? Absolutely. And that is where things like HR and laws come in to ensure safe working environments, etc. But if HYBE is following all of those things and just thought that copywriting Purple You would be a way to make a little more money, then that is the idea, and a simple rejection of a copyright is similar to just someone saying, no, I don't think you can do that, and that is it. HYBE likely didn't take it personally or had any malice towards Taehyung for attempting to file. It's just business, and I would assume Taehyung would understand too. There's nothing wrong with trying to file just to see if it would work. All this came about because there seemed to be news that Taehyung's private schedule in Paris was allegedly being sold by Taehyung's close staff. Of course, this came to light by French media after Taehyung left, which is good because now if people were to message that staff, the information that they have is fairly useless as Taehyung is gone, right? But the conversation of how did this happen and how did HYBE let this happen started to come to light, and the conversation of look how bad they are as a company because this happened, and they don't care about Taehyung because they attempted to file a copyright on his phrase. So it just piled up. Obviously, I gave my viewpoint on the copyright issue, but for this specific issue, I think we need to know for sure if this is actually a HYBE staff that sold it or a stalker that just said that they were a HYBE staff to seem more legitimate when they were trying to sell the information. But it is currently believed it is someone that was close to Taehyung, and a conversation of is this the only time had come to surface. How many times has this happened where it was just hidden? And of course, does this mean that Taehyung has always been this deeply in danger? It all depends on if the information was accurate. I don't think that information has actually been said, but did Taehyung actually go to those places that was on the leaked schedule? People want HYBE to make a statement or take legal action, but I have mentioned before, you cannot take legal action and report on it. It gives time for the perpetrator to leave the country or plan a rebuttal if they know that they're going to have legal action taken on them. This is usually done silently and between lawyers. There's likely an internal investigation with Taehyung's team right now, now to see the accuracy of those claims. Internal investigations likely include emails, texts, DMs, and things like that. So they'll know soon enough if these stories are real. Other comments that HYBE should have known better and not hire these type of people are claims that are really narrow-minded and don't consider how humans act, which is the sole problem. It is downright impossible to hire someone who you can trust 100%. This person that HYBE could hire could literally have no past record of doing anything bad or any history of this type of stalker behavior. But let's say, and I'm not saying this is a good reason, but let's say they had a personal issue and needed money. Then they see that they have something that they could sell for a lot of money. They could do it without having any past record of doing this stuff. So people can change. Things can change in a person's life to change their behavior. Once not a bad person could then be one, meaning there's no way to monitor who would be the perfect person to be Taehyung's staff. And you need to find someone who would not be tempted by money. It's just extremely difficult to prevent that sort of thing. But again, I don't know the full story. This is just a possibility, and why we shouldn't just assume HYBE is bad. People think that Taehyung did kind of speak out about this situation or situations like this. When Taehyung got to the airport and walked out, there was a huge crowd waiting for him. Several of them are reporters, and a lot of them were armies that had either gotten information from the reporters or fan clubs that may have gotten the press releases from somewhere. Now, it is also believed that some of them could be people that bought the private schedule that was being sold. This could also explain the crowd and it possibly being bigger than Taehyung had expected it to be. Taehyung did mention in his story afterwards how shocked he was by the crowd, and after he left the airport wanted to make sure that no one got hurt. Both reporters and armies, of course, we can interpret that to mean that maybe he was aware his information was being sold. We could also interpret why he posted that to mean that he was scared of another Itaewon crowding situation. Now, people can assume it was definitely more of a concern over Taehyung being stalked and wonder if this stalker or staff member is going to go to jail. It's definitely not unheard of for people who have come after BTS or done shady stuff to be put in jail. And I'll explain that in a little bit. If you stalk someone in France, it is up to a year in prison, and if they were to be perpetrated by Korean law, it's about 3 years. Either way, if this person is found, they're likely going to go to jail. Now, in the past, there was someone who attempted to hurt Big Hit, and they allegedly went to jail. This was back in 2017 and didn't make huge news, but of course would make huge news if it happened now. Apparently, someone was in charge of doing the marketing for the label, but claimed he noticed illegal marketing tactics used by Big Hit and asked Big Hit to pay a lump sum or they will release this information to the public. Kind of similar type of dark situation, right? Like people who were supposed to be good and not money hungry, but ended up being exactly that. The person was reported to the police by Big Hit and ended up going to jail, which makes me more inclined to believe the information that the blackmailer was going to leak was likely false. But as we can see from that situation, anyone who chooses to cross BTS or Big Hit for the sake of money will likely end up in jail. So we don't have to worry too much about Taehyung. Stuff is likely happening behind the scenes, and if you are on BTS's internal team, I bet you everyone is stressed right now because all of their information, messages, and everything is being looked through as we speak. But I'm very curious what you think of this. Are you concerned? Do you think V is upset? And how do you feel about the Borahae copyright situation? And do you think HYBE should have gotten it? Let me know what you think. Make sure you check out my Patreon for more videos, link down below. Thanks, there's a little comment right here. Love you, bye.